Welcome to Fight City NYC, pound for pound, the best boxing show in New York City. My name is Ben Chan, and I'm your host. Sitting next to me is the Astoria assassin, Aris Pina. We both work for CopyBox. We're the sexiest statisticians in boxing. Unfortunately, our MMA expert, Francisco Guzman, couldn't join us tonight. He's out and about, and he will be calling in later, hopefully. But it's been a long time, man.
Very long time. A lot going on in the boxing world, the MMA world, and
so
let's talk about tonight.
Let's start with what happened on Saturday. Lesnar versus Velasquez. Velasquez pretty much pulverized Lesnar and became the first Mexican heavyweight MMA champion in UFC history. Viva la Raza!
Yeah.
Go Mexico!
Yeah.
Aris, you watched the fight. What were your impressions about Lesnar and Velasquez?
Before the fight, I heard there was a lot of people mention that Cain and Velasquez had a good shot at winning. A lot of MMA experts thought that Brock Lesnar still has a lot of trouble learning the basics. He's still a baby in the MMA world. And all the insecurities and different things that Lesnar has not learned yet, that showed up that night. He came out very strong. He took Velasquez right down, landed a series of punches, and it looked like it was going to be another quick night for Brock Lesnar. And then all of a sudden, the tables have turned. Velasquez got up, kicked him in the face with a very good shot, by the way.
Very good shot.
Then cracked him with a right hand right afterwards. Lesnar showed that his chin is not all there. And Velasquez showed that his experience went right through. He jumped right on top of Lesnar, pounced on him. And unlike Shane Carwin, who blew his load right in the very first fight, in the first round of that fight, and shot his load out, Velasquez was ready for him. And Velasquez put a serious pounding, paced himself well, picked his spots, and therefore became the new UFC heavyweight champion. Right,
and there were some journalists and that I've looked at, and a lot of the stuff about MMA I check out on bloodyelbow.com, which is the MMA blog, a very good blog. And there were some people talking about the difference between the training camps. Now you had Cain Velasquez, who actually has been a member of the American Kickboxing Academy. That's his gym. That's where he trains. And you have versus Lesnar, who hires his own guys and basically pays them. And they're talking about the difference, I guess, between going to a gym and having guys who train you versus hiring guys that are your employees. I guess they're kind of like yes men.
That's what I feel. When you go to a gym, you're there for hard work. You're there not to be pampered, not to be baby, not to be catered to. You're going to put in the work. You're going to get ready for your fight. That's what you go to the gym for, to get ready, especially for a big fight. And I get the impression, at least in my eyes, this happened to a lot of other fighters, professional boxing, MMA guys. They hire their own crew because once they get to a certain level, they want to stay there. They feel that they're elitists. They have their own mindset. No one's they're untouchable, and they want to hire their own crew because they like to be pampered. They like to be baby. Floyd Mayweather, for example, was like that. Sugar Ray Robinson was like that in the past also.
Right.
But they could get away with it. A guy like Brock Lesnar, who's still new to MMA, shouldn't be hiring his own crew of yes men.
Right. And a lot was also made in the way that UFC marketed UFC 121 because they kind of pushed Cain Velasquez as the guy, the Mexican guy, whether he's going to be the first Mexican to win the heavyweight championship, even though he was actually born in California, and he, proclaims his American heritage just as much as his Mexican heritage. It kind of rubbed some fans the wrong way that they put his nationality out there in the forefront. Some people thought that maybe, he was just kind of pushed out there, to be Lesnar's next victim, but when you think about boxing, that's always kind of been a tradition in boxing. It's always kind of a nationalistic thing. It's always Puerto Rico versus Mexico or, America versus Britain. So, I mean, you've worked on the promotional side of it. I mean, that's what sells, right?
It is. Very much so. There's always been that ethnic rivalry, especially in boxing. There's Puerto Rico. There's between Puerto Rico and Mexico, like you said. Irish have always had a little bit of a rivalry. With the Jewish community in boxing. So they have a lot of little inner rivalries between that, and they're trying to build that in UFC also. With the different heritage, maybe Brazilian,
right.
And now the Mexican. And it's really getting diversified out there. Japanese, all the other different countries that take part in MMA. It's a very diverse field. And so it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen now in the years to come. Now that it's gotten so popular, which ones are going to coexist to become the next big rivalry, the Mexican-Puerto Rico rivalry in boxing, and so on.
And from the look of the audience, it was very successful because there seemed to be a lot of Mexicans in the audience cheering on Cain. And, you know, it's not just boxing. I mean, if you look at soccer,
Yep.
that's a very nationalistic sport, especially,
Very.
you know, people come and wave the flags,
Yep,
and then you have
yep.
the World Cup. So it's not just boxing, it's not just MMA. And I think most of the time it's harmless, you know, it's just, hey, you know, this is where I'm from, this is where you're from, you know, we're fighting for our countries. You know, for some people that's a lot of pressure. For other people, you know, they love it. You know, I remember when Tito was fighting Bernard at the, you know, in 2001. You know, I mean, he had all of Puerto Rico on his shoulders. You know, and some people say that got to him. You know, so that's
you feel it's exactly, it's the pressure of having the entire nation on your shoulders, especially when you're fighting a person that's very tough, very difficult. And that added pressure sometimes can push you over the edge. It's all about the mental capabilities that you have and how tough you really are mentally.
Right. So kudos to Velasquez for being able to deal with that pressure and to perform so well. And he was very impressive that night. And now comes the aftermath. And there are some people that are saying that Dana White, the guy who runs UFC, is upset because now he's lost Brock Lesnar. He's not undefeated anymore. Now they don't have a dominant fighter in MMA, a dominant heavyweight, and some people think that's bad for the sport. Other people think that's good for the sport. That's actually been a debate that's been running in boxing for a long time. I mean, now you have the Klitschko's, and before the Klitschko brothers, it was Lennox Lewis. I mean, what do you think about, is it good to have one guy dominating the sport?
It's a it's a weird subject, but at the same time, sometimes it can be good, sometimes it can be bad. Think of the 80s. Mike Tyson was the dominant heavyweight of that division back in the mid-80s when he knocked out Trevor Berbick, then tore through the rest of the division, culminating with Michael Spinks. When you think of that, Mike Tyson was a destroyer. Fans gravitate toward that. They like to see a guy that goes out there, takes care of business really quickly, snarls at the camera, and walks away. That's something they can relate to. They like to see the violence. They like to see a dominant figure.
People like to be excited.
They like to be excited, and a person like Mike Tyson gave excitement. That type of person, that's good for the sport. That's a dominant figure. That's good for the sport. Klitschko brothers on the other end, as dominant as they are, they're not as exciting. Right. They take a long time. They're very precise in how they throw their punches. They don't go for the kill right away. They like to pick and choose their spots. It takes a few rounds for them to knock a person out. You know, for the purest of boxing, for the purest of the fans, they like that stuff. It's very, I enjoy it. They're very good at what they do, and they dominate, and they've dominated a very, you know, albeit a weak field in the heavyweight division, they've dominated what they've been put up against. But the casual American fan and the casual boxing fan in general can't really get into it.